Crime, Wine, and Chaos contains adult language and graphic content. Listener discretion is advised.
We're going to drop it like it's hot, Chaos Kids. I'm Naomi.
I'm Amber, and this is Crime, Wine, and Chaos. Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot. Oh, man. Yeah, we are. That was a good one. I don't know what you mean.
Remember when Dad fucking loved that song?
Oh, my God. Do you remember when he was rolling around in Marissa's old hoopty Buick and she had Sir Mix-a-Lot, My Posse's on Broadway, and it was cranked up and stuck on repeat, and he didn't know how to do anything with her fancy car stereo? So he just listened to it all day like that. He came up the stairs and he was all, coming on up to the 702. I was like, what the hell?
No, but I love that story. Oh, it's amazing.
Oh my God. How are
you? You know what? I'm doing well. I am in the midst, as you know, but the Chaos Kids don't know. I am in the middle of a big old Mama Jamma purge.
Mm-hmm.
Big old purge. I started with my personal closet.
Mm-hmm.
With my clothes and my shoes, because I knew it would be the hardest. I start with the hardest thing. And when I tell you that after I went through all my clothes and shoes, that there was a literal mountain, in the middle of the floor, bags upon bags upon bags. So anyway, that's just the beginning. Oh I am going through every single thing. I am wearing everything you own.
Oh my God. Well,
that's what's going on with me, sis. That's what's going on with me. What's going on with you?
One woman's junk is another woman's treasure. So you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know.
Oh, Well, this is going to be released way late, but I have a show tomorrow night. So I'm just kind of working through my set list. So that's what's going on with me. Let's see, what else? Fuck. A whole lot of nothing. That's about it. We've got, this is after that, virtual wine night. I have a lot of fun events coming up that I'm just kind of prepping for.
Yeah.
You know? So
Okay. That's good
all
stuff.
good
What are you
things.
drinking today?
Thank you for asking. It's a Chardonnay from South Australia from the Ravelston Cellars family. Yes.
Okay.
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 Yeah. And we have a new Chaos Kid.
We do.
We believe that perhaps this person's name is Amber. It's Ambre.
Mm-hmm.
If that is incorrect, please tell us so that we can correct it.
But welcome, Amber.
Probably
to
Amber.
The Chaos Kids Club.
Oh my gosh. Another Amber. Probably.
Another Amber. Thank you so much. Probably. And thank you so much for joining the club. That always makes our day. Our week. We love that. We love that. Just in time. This is after the fact, but the joining is before the fact, just in time for virtual wine night.
Virtual wine night. Love
Looking
it.
forward to that.
Samesies. I have a crime for you.
Yes. Tell me a story, sister.
I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you the very sad story of Carrie Ann Jopek. Okay. She was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's actually pronounced Milwaukee. Which means the good people of the land.
Side note, I don't want to get too far off track, but for a country that did everything it could and continues to do everything that it can to completely wipe out an entire race of people, they sure do like to name things after that race of people and the words of their languages. It's kind of wild.
We have a lot in Washington. A lot.
We do.
And people get really tripped up on like, what town is that? What are you?
But you know what? Driving all over the continent, it's not just here. It happens all over the place.
Yeah.
This is going on all over this country, and it is kind of infuriating, actually. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like, I see their names and their words everywhere. Where are they? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yep. She was born August 17th, 1968 to her parents, Carolyn and Robert. Her parents divorced when Carrie was young, and her mom remarried a man named Fred, and the family lived in Cudahy, Wisconsin, which is just outside of Milwaukee. Her mom describes her as a Spitfire, and she said that her and Fred didn't always get along. It sounds like maybe kind of a typical step-parent thing where Carrie was like, "You're not my real dad," you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like it happens.
Mhm.
She was extremely artistic. She liked to draw and sing, but she wanted to become a veterinarian when she grew up.
Okay.
All of those things remind me of my own kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. In 1982, Carrie was enrolled at Cozy Osco Middle School with her best friend, Margie. On March 16th, 1982, Margie and Carrie were at school, and at around lunchtime, Margie sees Carrie in the halls, and she is packing up her bag to go home, and Margie can see that she is crying. I know. Carrie tells her that a boy in her art class threw paint on her, so she punched him, and because of that, she got suspended.
I mean, something tells me it started before the paint got thrown. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, good for you. Don't throw paint on me. So she gets suspended. She's nervous about going home, knowing that Fred would probably be angry. And when she got her suspension notice, which was around 1 p.m, the school called Carrie's mom and told her and gave her the option of either coming to the school to get her or letting Carrie walk home. So Carolyn told the school administrators that Carrie, that they lived just around the corner and that Carrie could walk home.
Okay.
Carolyn is waiting in the living room for Carrie to get home. We all know what that encounter is like when you're walking to what you know is going to be.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. But several hours go by and Carrie isn't home.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm. By 3 p.m., which was the normal school release time, when Carrie still wasn't home, Carolyn called Margie, but Margie says that the last time she saw Carrie was in the hall at school at lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
So Carolyn then walks the neighborhood and knocks on every door, asking if anyone had seen Carrie, but nobody had. By that night, Carolyn files a police report, makes flyers, and gets about 30 volunteers from the neighborhood to look for Carrie.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the time of her disappearance, she was wearing brown jeans, a white shirt, a white jacket, and white shoes.
No.
I know. Police assume that she's a runaway, especially because of her tumultuous relationship with her stepdad and having just been suspended. I mean, I know. This might be one of the few where the circumstances are like,
Yeah, but like run away to where, right? They always say like, oh, they ran away, but it's like when we're talking about like, well, she just say she was in like junior high.
Mm-hmm.
So she couldn't have been older than 14.
Right.
Like, where is she running away to?
Right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where do they think these runaways are going?
There's like
14?
some Narnia somewhere that everyone just goes
right?
to.
It's like, no, they're going to go hide at a friend's house or something. And then as soon as the police get involved, like the friend's parents or the friend, somebody's going to be like, okay, she's here. And
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Totally.
Like,
yeah. Yeah. So, of course, they don't put a lot of effort into the search because of this. And Carolyn calls Carrie's biological dad, Robert, who was living in Milwaukee, but he said he hadn't seen her. Police followed a couple of leads that ended up ruling people out, including her stepdad, Fred, and some shitbag older boy that lived in the neighborhood. I don't know.
Okay.
They also learned through talking with other students that there was a party planned for that day that Carrie wanted to go to. It was at her friend's Robin's house, but none of the kids there could confirm that they saw Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
So this just further confirmed the police suspicion that she ran away. But her mom never believed that.
This confirmed the suspicion that she ran away, not that she was missing, because to me that confirms that she didn't run away. Because if she'd run away, again, she would have been like, I'm going to go hide somewhere, and then I'm going to go to this party I want to go to because I'm free right now.
Right.
I'm thinking how I would have operated as a teenager running away, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And also, just side note, again, even if she is a runaway teenagers are at risk. So like, it's still a dangerous situation. We should still be looking for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're just a runaway. Well, they don't have the resources to be okay out there. So yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Especially like, yeah, Milwaukee is a pretty big city. It's, I mean, all the things, right?
Yep.
So a year would go by and Carolyn became convinced that Carrie was dead. On September 2nd, 1983, a contractor was at the Mann residence. So this was Carrie's friend Robin's house where the alleged party took place. This contractor was hired to demo the back porch and level out the yard so that grass could be planted. And as this contractor was leveling out the dirt, he came across human remains.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, all these teenagers lied. This is a River's Edge situation, isn't it?
Well, sort of. What's River's Edge?
It's the movie that was based off the death of the 13-year-old. The story I told at the live taping.
Oh, I forgot the name of the movie. I still need to watch that.
No, you don't. No one needs to watch it.
It's bad.
It's so bad.
Oh, okay. So I kind of like bad reenactment movies. But,
watch it.
Okay, great.
It does have Keanu Reeves in it, so.
Oh, well, he's a gem. So, but probably very young, right? Like Bill and Ted.
Very.
Keanu, when he didn't quite
it's
have
like
his
pre.
chops yet.
I think it's pre Bill and Ted.
Oh, I didn't know there was a Keanu pre Bill and Ted. Mm-hmm. Now I need to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so this contractor calls the police and quickly the scene is taped off while first responders recover the body. While all this is going on, neighbors are coming out to be looky-loos, including Carrie's mom. And when she hears, they're 2 houses down, by the way, from
Jesus Christ.
Yes. When she hears that a white jacket was pulled out of the remains, she knew that it was Carrie. 4 days later, through dental records, the body is positively identified as Carrie. So the autopsy showed that Carrie died from internal bleeding, specifically a hemorrhage to the brain. She also had... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just like, it's been a year.
Mm-hmm.
And they had enough, like, soft tissue left on the corpse to determine that?
I'm not sure.
Okay. But internal hemorrhaging in the brain, like blunt force trauma, likely of some sort.
Possibly. She also had a snapped vertebrae that looked similar to what you would see in someone who had severe whiplash.
Oh.
Uh-huh. And so the death was listed as undetermined, or the cause of death. Mm-hmm. The injuries could have been from an accidental fall, but her death was also clearly covered up by somebody. So
yep.
They questioned the residents at the Mann house, but they all are legitimately shocked at this discovery.
Even Robin?
Mm-hmm. One of the residents, John Mann, had ran back into the house when the body was being removed and was vomiting.
Oh.
Yeah. 4 days after Carrie was found, a neighbor contacts the police and gives them the name of a young man named Jose Ferreira, who went by Junior. He was 16 years old and was known in the neighborhood as a troublemaker.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. This neighbor saw Junior at the body recovery site throwing his hands in the air and crying. That's
a strange combination of physical effects.
Like it's celebratory and sad.
Yeah, right. Because what was the story you told me not that long
I'm
ago?
not a
The guy I'm not
suspect.
yes.
Yeah.
His hands in the air.
Wave
This
them
is
like
so
you just
weird.
don't
Okay.
care. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, this guy, he lived across the street from Carrie. So he's brought in for questioning. He denies any involvement. He says he was upset at the burial site because Carrie was his friend.
Mhm.
He's ultimately released because there's no evidence to hold him.
Mhm.
After this, Junior becomes very, very close with Carrie's family. He would go to their house
Oh,
for dinners
no.
and game nights. And over the years, he became like family to Carolyn and Fred.
I hate it.
Uh-huh. Years go by and the case goes cold. So 33 years after Carrie's death, on October 11th,
God
2015.
damn it.
What?
33 years? Just
66 times.
I cannot with these. Okay.
But
Decades
remember,
later.
this guy, I mean, the silver lining, was 16 at the time. So he didn't get to live a whole ass life and he's like 80 now. Like he's still pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that to hold on to. So it's October 11th, 2015. A call comes into the local news from now 50-year-old Jose Ferreira Jr., who says he is ready to confess to murder.
What?
Uh-huh. He wanted to sit down for an interview with longtime local journalist Kathy Michaelby. He also calls a crisis hotline and his ex-wife and confesses to the murder of Carrie Ann.
But he wants to do it on TV.
Well, yes, with this one specific journalist.
What a fucking douchebag. Okay.
So, according to his estranged ex-wife, Jose hit rock bottom in 2015 with his drinking and mental health. The journalist and the crisis counselor and the ex-wife, Brenda, all contact the Milwaukee police. I almost said Milwaukee. The Milwaukee police. So they bring Jose in for questioning, and as soon as he sits down, he confesses. So according to him, on that day, March 16th, 1982, Carrie was walking home after her school suspension, and she heard loud music and several voices coming from the Mand house, so she decided to stop by. She found several friends in the house, including Jose. The two shared a joint, and then Jose asked Carrie if she wanted to go down to the basement and make out.
Uh-huh.
Initially, she agreed, but as they got to the top of the stairs leading down to the basement, Carrie stopped and said, "I don't know. I don't think this is a good idea." So this made Jose angry, and he shoved her down the stairs. She tumbled so hard that when her head hit the stairs, it broke her neck and she died instantly. But Jose didn't know this at first. He thought he had just knocked her unconscious. So he dragged her off the stairs and into the basement so she was laying flat. And then he sexually assaulted her. And when he was done, this is a trigger warning.
This is the...
Sorry.
He performs necrophilia. Now a trigger warning.
Sorry. Well, I mean, okay. It's a true crime podcast.
I know.
So this next thing I'm about to say goes way outside of
the
norm. Okay, not that any of this should be normalized, but you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
So, he finishes assaulting her. He notices that she wasn't breathing. When he lifted her off the ground by her arms, her head swiveled until it was facing all the way backwards.
Oh my God.
So he knew that she was dead, and he also knew that several people had seen him head to the basement with her. So he thought that calling for help wasn't a good option. So he wrapped her in a dry cleaner bag and dragged her across the basement floor and out the basement door into the backyard, where he dug a shallow grave under the porch and put her there. Nobody was outside and nobody saw him. And after he was done, he went home.
But all those kids said they never saw her.
I know.
So they lied.
They lied. I also don't know how many people were there, how inebriated people were, how long she spent like in the party before she agreed to go downstairs. A lot of people could have missed that she was there. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know. So he is charged with second-degree murder. And when Carolyn learns who murdered her daughter, she is fucking devastated to learn that this person who had become family was the one who did it. The reason why I wanted to do this case, and then I couldn't find any additional information, is that the thing that he said was the reason he confessed and the reason for his spiraling out mental health issues around this was that Carrie was haunting him. Like, not like he was haunted, like she was haunting him.
Oh, like following him around like a ghost.
Yes. And I dug and dug and dug for more specifics, but it just reminded me of like the scene in Ghost where Patrick Swayze's character is fucking with his ex-coworker, ex-best friend. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And he's like losing it. Yeah. Anyway, I really wanted to find more information about specifics, but I was like, fucking good for you, Carrie. And also, I'm going to haunt the fuck out of people that did me dirty on planet Earth when I pass over.
Oh my God.
I mean, wouldn't you, if you were murdered, wouldn't you haunt the fuck out of them?
I mean,
if it was an option.
Maybe. I mean, maybe.
I hope that the confessing didn't stop the haunting. I hope she's still doing it.
To this day?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How much time did he end up getting?
He got 7 years. He got less time than how long it took to solve her murder.
Well, and the murder wasn't really solved, was it? It would never have been.
No. Mm-mm. No.
Ugh. And yet again, another like murderer in the house pretending to be friend.
I know. Let's grieve together.
So wild to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe that's why she had to haunt him, because he wouldn't leave her family alone.
No shit. God.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, motherfucker, what are you doing at my mom's house?
No shit.
You know?
Yeah. Get out of my Christmas, you piece of shit.
Right?
Mm-hmm. That's my Monopoly game, you fucker. Yeah.
God. All right. Well, I'm going to tell you a chaos story.
Love it.
Kind of a downer.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm going to take you on a little journey to get there.
Okay.
So manifest destiny was a phrase that represented the belief in the 19th century United States that American settlers were destined to expand westward across North America, and that this belief was both obvious, manifest, and certain, destiny.
Mm-hmm.
The belief was rooted in American exceptionalism and romantic nationalism, implying the inevitable spread of the Republican form of governance. It was one of the earliest expressions of American imperialism in the United States of America. According to historian William Earl Weeks, there were three basic tenets behind the concept. One, the assumption of the unique moral virtue of the United States. No one was as moral and virtuous as the U.S.
Okay, I beg to differ.
Two, the assertion of its mission to redeem the world by the spread of Republican government and more generally the, quote, American way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And three, the faith in the nation's divinely ordained destiny to succeed in this mission. This was a divisive concept, especially in regards to the slavery in these new states and territories as Americans expanded westward, because despite what many would have us believe, slavery was not even close to universally accepted in the U.S. or the rest of the world at the time that the U.S. was still enslaving people.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly, the discourse didn't seem to include what it meant for the indigenous of these lands, even though many of us have come to understand that this westward expansion of the United States territory played the biggest hand in the genocide of millions and millions of Native peoples.
Mm-hmm.
And it is during this period of U.S. expansion that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the LDS or Mormons, establishes itself firmly in what is now the state of Utah.
Oh, boy.
Look, you made us talk about Scientology, and now we're going to talk about the Mormons.
Okay, great.
The Mormon Church was founded by one Joseph Smith, a known scammer and con man, who claimed to have found a set of golden tablets buried in the earth in upstate New York because an angel named Moroni told him he would find them there.
Baloney, Moroni.
And I say scammer and con man quite deliberately because we know all about Joseph Smith's life. There is no mystery on his origins or his church's origins. It's well documented.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, he translated these golden tablets into the Book of Mormon, and a religion was born. Your face. Now, Mormons would consider themselves a Christian religion, as they do believe in Jesus Christ, although they break from other Christian religions in that they do not believe that God, Jesus, and the Holy Ghost are all one being, but each their own separate being. They also believe that Jesus is the true founder and leader of the church itself, and that when Joseph Smith physically established the LDS in 1830, it was just a re-establishment of the primitive church Jesus Christ had with his apostles. LDS also believes that Jesus leads their church still through current apostles and prophets, hence the name Latter-day Saints.
Mm-hmm.
They also believe that Jesus Christ made a trip to North America at some point.
Sure.
But I digress.
Sure. To Utah.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
So while they believe in Jesus and his crucifixion and resurrection, they also believe in things no other Christian denomination believes. Like there's 3 different heavens, the ability of humans to become gods and goddesses in the afterlife, the belief that revelations continue to come from God to chosen prophets within the church to this day, resulting in canon to their beliefs that can continue to change, and weird secret rituals that other Christians don't do that are really just stolen from like the Masons and stuff. So basically they call themselves Christians, but a lot of Christians do not agree.
Okay.
In the 1830s, Joseph Smith and his church were scrutinized and heavily criticized for their part in a banking failure in Ohio, one of his scams.
Mm-hmm.
They continued to migrate west, trying to settle in various places, including Missouri, which resulted in the 1838 Mormon War and the Mormon extermination order by Missouri's governor, because he said, quote, "The Mormons must be treated as enemies and must be exterminated or driven from the state if necessary for the public peace. Their outrages are beyond all description."
God, Mormon extermination order? That's fucking dark. Okay.
This was the first of 3 Mormon wars where basically wherever they went, they got into it with the local non-Mormons and it got violent, and ultimately the Mormons would be run out of town. By the 1840s, there was much criticism of the Mormons, especially the polygamy. And after a newspaper in Illinois published criticism of the polygamy and other doctrines of Smith's church, Joseph Smith took a leading role in having the paper's printing press destroyed, which landed him in jail for treason. And while he awaited trial, an angry mob stormed the jailhouse and shot him fatally.
Shit. Oh, really?
Yes.
Didn't know that part.
So this is when Brigham Young stepped in to lead the Mormons out of Illinois and continue their migration west into the Salt Lake Valley. He founded Salt Lake City and served as the first governor of the Utah Territory. So the Mormons had found this spot in this great continent that had relatively few people settled on it and was technically owned by the U.S., but had yet to officially transfer ownership. And Brigham Young and other church leaders were dead set on basically establishing their own little spot where no one would run them off. They could have all the wives they wanted and practice their weird rituals without interference. But then gold was discovered, like a year later in California, and the California Gold Rush began.
Mm-hmm.
With that rush, along with Manifest Destiny gaining national consciousness, came a steady stream of travelers that more often than not used trails that passed directly through territories settled by Mormon pioneers.
Tromping through their yards.
That's right. So with this chosen isolation being so short-lived, the Mormons petitioned the U.S. government in 1849 to take a large part of the territory they were residing in and incorporate it into a state called the State of Deseret.
Okay.
Mostly they were trying to get a jump on the inevitable and be in control. They wanted the LDS to be in charge of this territory officially. The U.S. created the Utah Territory, not the State of Deseret, in 1850 and appointed Brigham Young as the governor.
How large is this territory?
It's big. When I was looking on a map, the territory that they were at least the territory they were originally in, it looks like it covers like Nevada and Utah.
Oh, geez.
And like a little bit, like this was back before the states had been fully, right? Like they were still chunks, like bigger chunks and territories. And while the Mormons were happy about this at first, the amicable relationship between them and the federal government did not last long. First and foremost, Americans did not like the polygamy. They viewed it as highly immoral. And during the presidential election of 1856, the Republican platform pledged, quote, to prohibit in the territories those twin relics of barbarism, polygamy and slavery. Americans, especially on the East Coast, were also alarmed by what they deemed a semi-theocratic dominance of the Utah Territory. The whole thing on, a government level was being run by Mormons with Mormon beliefs and Mormon interests in mind. And this was antithetical to the America that was supposed to have a clear separation of church and state. And it was the wrong kind of Christian, right?
Sure.
They're not Christians, right? Okay.
Right.
So this, along with other factors at play that gave Brigham Young and the LDS Church much more power than any other governing body in any other territory, led to the decision by then President James Buchanan to send U.S. forces into the Utah Territory. Ultimately, the feds just didn't want Brigham Young as governor anymore. He had too much power as a governor and president of the LDS. Many claim that the Mormons did not know the full intent of the army the U.S. president was sending, and Brigham Young called for martial law and encouraged the Mormons to prepare for battle.
Jeez.
In the midst of all that, he tried to fortify alliances with the natives in the area. That relationship had always been tenuous at best, fraught at its worst. The Mormons were not known for their friendly relations with the indigenous populations they had encountered on their move west, nor upon their settling of the territory. It's suspected that Brigham Young was expecting a real battle with the U.S. government and was trying to get the natives to align with the Mormons against the U.S. government as a means to his own ends. He just wanted more soldiers in his fight against the feds.
Yeah, he gives zero shits about the natives. He's just trying to
zero shits.
Yep, zero shits.
So he told the natives basically that they could raid and pillage any travelers that came through on the trails that passed through Utah Territory.
Cool governing.
Yeah. The Utah War lasted from May of 1857 to July of 1858 with a pause for winter, of course. And the Mormons were all on high alert, expecting a big showdown with the feds. No big showdowns actually happened. There were little skirmishes here and there. It went on. But they were prepared to fight. And they were also prepared to burn their homes to the ground and flee.
Okay. To where? Just
farther west.
Okay.
Somewhere else. I mean, they would have ended up in Washington.
Oh, I know. Burn their homes.
And so it was at the height of these tensions in September of 1857 that the Baker-Fancher emigrant wagon train was making its way through southern Utah Territory. The wagon train was made up mostly of pretty well-off families from Arkansas headed to California on the old Spanish Trail. They were well-organized and well-equipped for the journey. They planned to restock their supplies in Salt Lake City, as did most wagon trains at the time. But because of the timing, the federal troops, Brigham Young's declaration of martial law, the distrust amongst the Mormons of any outsiders coming through their territory, the Baker-Fancher party was denied supplies in Salt Lake City. So they kept going on the old Spanish Trail south from the city and on suggestion continued on to Mountain Meadows to rest their cattle and regroup. The dispirited Baker Fancher party found water and fresh grazing for its livestock after reaching the grassy, mountain-ringed Mountain Meadows, a widely known stopover on the old Spanish Trail. They anticipated several days of rest and recuperation there before the next 40 miles would take them out of Utah.
But they've already passed through the Mormons, and they weren't ambushed. They were denied resources.
They already passed through Salt Lake.
Oh.
But they were still in Utah territory.
Okay, got it.
Meanwhile, the locals, the Mormons in the areas that they were approaching and passing through, were distrustful of them, possibly jealous of their wealth, and on high alert because of this war. And local leaders and officials thought something should be done about this wagon train coming through. Ideas were thrown around, including basically contracting out the local natives to take care of it. But everyone agreed to wait until they could get input from Brigham Young. So after this debate about what to do, a writer was sent out to take a message to Brigham Young in Salt Lake City. And this is down in like southern Utah at this point. And so they're seeking his orders or his guidance or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a 6-day ride, round trip. 3 days there, 3 days back. This was September 6th, 1857. At the same time, one of the councilmen sent a message south to John D. Lee, who was an officer in the Mormon militia and an Indian agent. So that's basically like an ambassador or liaison between the Mormons and the natives.
Okay.
But no one knows for certain what was in the message that they sent to John Lee. The next day, September 7th, a group of Mormon militiamen dressed as natives, along with a few actual natives of the Paiutes, attacked the Baker Fancher party in Mountain Meadows.
Dressed as natives?
Yes. They wanted to make sure that the Baker Fancher party believed that they were
the natives
being
did
attacked
that
by
to them.
Yes.
Not the Mormons, not the peaceful Christian Mormons.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
The Baker Fancher party defended itself by encircling and lowering their wagons, wheels chained together, along with digging shallow trenches and throwing dirt both below and into the wagons, which made a strong barrier. 7 of the party were killed during the opening attack and buried somewhere within the wagon encirclement. 16 more were wounded. This standoff went on for 5 days, while the families within the circle had little or no access to fresh water or game food, and their ammunition was also depleted. Meanwhile, local Mormon leadership was breaking down and in disarray and in arguing with each other, and fears started to spread among militia leaders that some of the Baker Fancher party had seen white men in the group that was attacking them. God. That their ruse that this was strictly a native raid on their wagon train was no longer holding up. The militia was determined not to be found out to be the instigators and main perpetrators of this attack, and so it was decided that everyone in that wagon train, with the exception of very small children, must be killed.
Oh, no.
On Friday, September 11th, 1857, 2 militiamen approached the Baker Fancher party wagons with a white flag and were soon followed by Indian agent and militia officer John D. Lee. Lee told the battle-weary emigrants that he had negotiated a truce with the Paiutes. Under Mormon protection, the wagon train members would be escorted safely back to Cedar City, 36 miles away, in exchange for turning all of their livestock and supplies over to the Native Americans. So they accepted this offer, and the Baker Fancher party were led out of their fortification, with the adult men being separated from the women and children. Oh, the men were paired with a militia escort, and when the signal was given, the militiamen turned and shot the male members of the Baker Fancher party standing by their side.
Fuck.
The women and children were then ambushed and killed by more militia that were hiding in nearby bushes and ravines. Members of the militia were sworn to secrecy, and a plan was set to blame the massacre on the Native Americans. They decided they didn't need to kill the very small children because they were not a risk for telling anyone what really happened or being believed. 17 children survived in total. Nancy Huff, one of the little ones who survived, being just barely 4 at the time of the massacre, would recall in a statement 18 years later in 1875 that there had initially been 18 survivors. Quote, "At the close of the massacre, there were 18 children still alive. One girl, some 10 or 12 years old, they said was too big and could tell. So they killed her, leaving 17.
Oh my God.
They killed her in front of the other children.
Jeez.
The survivors were taken in by local Mormon families. The children were later reclaimed by the U.S. Army and returned to relatives in Arkansas. The treatment of these children while they were held by the Mormons is uncertain, but Captain James Lynch's statement in May of 1859 said the surviving children were, quote, in a most wretched condition, half starved, half naked, filthy, infested with vermin, and their eyes diseased from the cruel neglect to which they had been exposed.
God.
Lynch's July 1859 affidavit added that when they first saw the children, they had, quote, little or no clothing and were, quote, covered with filth and dirt.
These poor kids.
This is madness.
Mm-hmm.
Brigham Young had received that writer at his office on the same day as the massacre, and when he learned what the militia leaders wanted to do, he sent back a letter stating that the Baker-Fancher party was not to be meddled with and should be allowed to go in peace, although he acknowledged the Native Americans would likely do as they pleased. Young's letter arrived 2 days too late on September 13th, 1857. The livestock and personal property of the Baker-Fancher party, including women's jewelry, clothing, and bedstuffs, were distributed or auctioned off to Mormons. Some of the surviving children saw clothing and jewelry that had belonged to their dead mothers and sisters subsequently being worn by Mormon women, and one journalist said that jewelry taken from Mountain Meadows was seen in Salt Lake City.
Jeez.
So first the Mormons investigated themselves.
Sure. As you do.
You know, as they always do. Brigham Young interviewed John D. Lee and in 1858 sent a report to the Commissioner of Indian Affairs stating that it was the Native Americans that committed the massacre.
Oh, fuck off.
The Utah War delayed a federal investigation until 1859. One U.S. Army officer that went out to Mountain Meadows during the investigation found women's hair tangled in sagebrush and the bones of children still in their mother's arms.
Oh, no.
He later said it was, quote, a sight which can never be forgotten.
I'm sure.
After gathering up the skulls and bones of those who had died, Carleton's troops buried them and erected a cairn and cross. He also interviewed a few local Mormon settlers and a Paiute Native American and a few Paiute Native American chiefs and concluded that there was Mormon involvement in the massacre. He issued a report in May 1859 setting forth his findings. Jacob Forney, superintendent of Indian Affairs for Utah, also conducted an investigation that included visiting the region in the summer of 1859. He retrieved many of the surviving children of massacre victims who had been housed with Mormon families and gathered them up for transportation to their relatives in Arkansas. He concluded that the Paiutes did not act alone and the massacre would not have occurred without the Mormons. And while Carleton's report to the U.S. Congress called the mass killings a heinous crime, blaming both local and senior church leaders for the massacre. In March 1859, a federal judge brought into the territory after the Utah War convened a grand jury in Provo concerning the massacre, but the jury declined any indictments. Nevertheless, he also conducted a tour of the Mountain Meadows area with a military escort. He attempted to arrest John D. Lee and two others who all fled before they could be found. The judge publicly charged Brigham Young as an instigator to the massacre and therefore an accessory before the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Then a Mormon territorial probate court judge arrested Brigham Young under a territorial warrant, probably trying to divert any trial of Young away from a federal court and into a friendly Mormon court.
Sure.
Apparently, because no federal charges were brought against him, Young was released.
Mm-hmm.
Further investigations were cut short by the American Civil War in 1861. That the whole Civil War thing going on.
Sure. That was a whole thing.
It was a whole thing. Everybody
Mhm.
was real occupied.
Yeah, distracted.
But it proceeded again in 1871 when prosecutors obtained the affidavit of militia member Philip Klingensmith. Klingensmith had been a bishop and blacksmith from Cedar City in the Utah Territory. By the 1870s, he had left the church and moved to Nevada. So John D. Lee was finally arrested on November 7th, 1874. 4 others were indicted and arrested while warrants to pursue the arrests of another 4 who had gone into hiding were being obtained. Klingensmith escaped prosecution by agreeing to testify. Brigham Young removed some of the murderers, including John D. Lee, from the LDS Church in 1870. The U.S. posted bounties of $5,000, which is equivalent to over 120,000 today, each for the capture of 4 of these men that they were trying to arrest. John D. Lee's first trial began on July 23rd, 1875, before a jury of 8 Mormons and 4 non-Mormons. The trial led to a hung jury on August 5th, 1875. His second trial began September 13th, 1876, before an all-Mormon jury, but he called no witnesses in his defense and was convicted.
Oh, by an all-Mormon jury.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, there's that.
Yeah, there's right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
He was entitled to choose the method of his execution from 3 possible options: hanging, firing squad, or decapitation.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
Yep. At sentencing, Lee chose to be executed by firing squad. In his final words before his sentence was carried out at Mountain Meadows, Lee said that he was a scapegoat for others involved. Brigham Young stated that Lee's fate was just, but it was not a sufficient blood atonement given the enormity of the crime. This is the same guy who was trying to say that he investigated it and it was all Native Americans that did it.
Sure, exactly.
Okay. So that first monument of a cairn and like a simple cedar cross was that Army official had placed when they found the bodies initially. That was found destroyed, and the structure was replaced by the U.S. Army in 1864. By some reports, the monument was destroyed in 1861 when Brigham Young brought an entourage to Mountain Meadows. Wilford Woodruff, who later became president of the church, said that upon reading the inscription on the cross, which read, "Vengeance is mine, thus saith the Lord, I shall repay," Young responded, "It should be, vengeance is mine, and I have taken a little." In 1932, residents of the surrounding area constructed a memorial wall around the remnants of the monument. Starting in 1988, the Mountain Meadows Association, composed of descendants of both the Baker-Fancher Party victims and the Mormon participants, designed a new monument in the Meadows. This monument was completed in 1990 and is maintained by the Utah State Division of Parks and Recreation. In 1999, the LDS Church replaced the U.S. Army's cairn and the 1932 memorial wall with a second monument, which it now maintains. In August 1999, when this newest monument construction started, the remains of at least 28 massacre victims were dug up by a backhoe. The forensic evidence showed that the remains of the males had been shot by firearms at close range and that the remains of the women and children showed evidence of blunt force trauma.
Oh my God.
In 1955, to memorialize the victims of the massacre, a monument was installed in the town square of Harrison, Arkansas. On one side of this monument is a map and short summary of the massacre, while the opposite side contains a list of the victims. In 2005, a replica of the U.S. Army's original 1859 cairn was built in the community of Carrollton, Arkansas, and is maintained by the Mountain Meadows Monument Foundation. In 2007, the 150th anniversary of the massacre was remembered by a ceremony held in the Meadows. Approximately 400 people, including many descendants of those slain at Mountain Meadows, and Elder Henry B. Eyring of the LDS Church's Quorum of the 12 Apostles attended this ceremony.
Okay, I don't know. That was a word salad, but okay.
Right. In 2011, the site was designated as a National Historic Landmark after joint efforts by descendants of those killed and the LDS Church. In 2014, archaeologist Everett Bassett discovered 2 rock piles he believes mark additional graves. The locations of the possible graves are on private land and not at any of the monument sites owned by the LDS Church. The Mountain Meadows Monument Foundation has expressed their desire that the sites are conserved and given national monument status. Other descendant groups have been more hesitant in accepting the sites as legitimate grave markers. And that is the most TLDR version I could give you of the Mountain Meadows Massacre.
That was fucking terrible. I hated that.
I'm sorry, sister. I think people don't know about this.
I didn't know about that.
You didn't know about that.
Mm-mm. I sure as shit didn't. I do now. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Fuck.
I mean, the Mormon Church is like projected to be worth like $1 trillion very soon.
I believe that.
Mm-hmm. Their history of horror and terror is much closer to us than, some of the other religious horrors
Sure.
and terrors that have been perpetuated on the world.
Sure.
Was not that long ago. Is all I'm saying.
No, it really
Not that long
wasn't.
ago.
It really wasn't. Oh God, that's scary. I hate it.
Mhm. Well,
Well,
your story was sunshine and rainbows.
we got a
either.
double Debbie
Sister.
Downer today, and I'm sorry
We got a
about
double Debbie. You know what? It happens here.
does
It
happen.
happens here.
Mhm.
So anyway,
that.
we did it.
We sure as shit did. Follow us on all the things, except that we don't really engage on Facebook and Instagram anymore.
We're about to shut it down.
Yeah, I'm just starting to I'm slowly backing away. Not into it. Hopefully we could get on the TikTok game.
Yeah, well, I was hitting some like legit technical difficulties with that have not resolved. So
Okay. It's all good.
But yes,
But
that's the plan.
Yeah. And we've got a website and the Patreon page and an email.
You can email us.
still accessible.
Amber gets the love letters. I get the hate mail. They all go to the same address. It's crimewineandchaos@gmail.com. Join the Chaos Kids Club. It's $5 a month. You get a bonus episode every month. We do virtual wine nights once in a while. You get new episodes drop a day earlier than they do for everyone else. So there's benefits there.
Sure,
and we
shit
love
is.
it. We love it when you join the club. So I love you, sister.
Love you
that
so
was
much. That was
chaotic.
So chaotic. Goodbye.
Bye.
Crime, Wine, and Chaos is produced by 8th Direction Records. Artwork by Joshua M. Davis. Music by Paul Abner. If you would like to support the show, you can visit our Patreon page at crimewineandchaos.com/Patreon. Cheers! Baloney Maroney.